Have you ever had a premonition that something was going to happen, and it did? Have you suddenly thought of someone whom you have not had in mind for months or years, only to get a letter or a phone call from that person, or to run into him at an unexpected time and place? Have you ever had a strong urge to do or not to do something, and followed your urge, later finding out that subsequent events proved your urge was right? Have you ever had a vivid dream or vision of some event which later came to pass? Have you felt the invisible presence of some intelligence, known or unknown to you? If any of these experiences have been yours, it is possible that you have had a manifestation of what is today called extrasensory perception, or ESP. This exciting and revealing volume, which records the author's most outstanding authenticated ESP experiences, is positive proof that ESP works and that it can work for you. Harold Sherman was a journalist, author, self-trained psychic, and ESP researcher. He wrote many books about American sports and football, self-improvement, and also extrasensory perception, or ESP. He was famous for participating in the first long-distance telepathy experiment in the 1930s, where more than 80% of his recordings of what the Arctic explorer Sir Hubert Wilkins, who was in the North Pole, did day to day was accurate. The experiment was detailed in his book, Thoughts Through Space. A link of the book is provided below this video. It is Sherman's ESP books where he detailed his own personal experiences with ESP that really captured my attention. His writings and experiences really changed my paradigm of the world. Sherman not only knew how to send and receive thought impressions, he knew how to use the power of thought to manifest his goals. He could perform out-of-body experiences, which he talked about in his books, and he could use his thoughts to create coincidences to meet someone or make someone contact him at will. His books also explores communications with those who have departed and evidences that they do watch over us. Other topics which he explored are dream impressions, foreseeing the future, and something extremely rare that only very advanced Hindu yogis have performed. One of his mentors had materialized a visible, solid astral body or dream body that was witnessed by an entire hotel reception staff while his physical body was sleeping at home. We will be sharing these incredible stories from Harold Sherman in upcoming videos. In this How to Make ESP Work For You series, we will share some of Sherman's real-life ESP stories and observations from his book. If you haven't already, please remember to like and subscribe and turn on the notification button to be informed of new videos. This is the first story of ESP from the book How to Make ESP Work For You by Harold Sherman. Don't turn on the lights. I was in my room on the second floor of our family home in Traverse City, Michigan, in the year 1915. This room faced west, and the sun was setting. It was growing dark. I was at my typewriter, and I got up as I had done hundreds of times before to turn on the electric light. As I reached for the switch, a voice in my inner ear, not a voice that I heard externally, said, "Don't turn on the lights." This was such an unexpected and such an eerie command that I hesitated, wondering why I should get such an impression. Unable to go against this impulse, I returned to my desk and typed for perhaps 10 minutes longer, until it grew so dark that I just had to turn on the light. But once more, as I fixed my attention on the electric light bulb, with my hand on the switch, the voice within repeated its warning, "Don't turn on the lights." At almost the same instant, someone ran up to the porch downstairs and began banging the door and ringing the bell. I went downstairs without turning on the light, and was confronted by a linesman. He said, "Don't turn on the light. There is a high voltage wire down across your line outside." Young man that I was, I realized that in some way I could not explain. As I had concentrated on the act of turning on the light, I had tuned in on the mind of the linesman. In the past 10 minutes, he had been running to several homes to warn people not to turn on their lights. And in that period of time, his emotionalized thoughts had reached my own mind in advance of his physical arrival. The evidence was too specific for this happening to be attributed to chance or coincidence. If, I reason, I have been able to pick up his thought impression, it proves that thought transference is not only possible, but that one should be able to repeat it at will, once sufficient knowledge of the processes involved is gained. This realization started me on what became a lifetime quest, an unceasing desire to discover all I could concerning the mysteries of the mind and to bring mind power under conscious control or direction. I first went to the library to see what literature I could unearth that might throw light on what had happened to me. But in those early days, there was little of an authoritative nature. I did, however, come upon one remarkable book which still stands up today as a classic in its field. It was Thomas Hudson's The Law of Psychic Phenomena. This man's knowledge of the functioning of mind and the nature of subconscious was far ahead of his time. Because dependable, demonstrable knowledge of these extrasensory faculties was so generally lacking, I decided that I would have to make a guinea pig of myself, so to speak, and to do my own research and experimenting. In my search, as the years passed, it became increasingly obvious that innumerable worlds and planes of being exist beyond the reach of our 5 physical senses, and that our inability to perceive them is no proof that they are not there. Nor could I depend upon my physical senses to report to me the whole truth about anything. Seeing was no longer believing. A chair, which had once seemed to me to be absolutely solid, was actually composed of billions of moving atoms, continually whirling in their orbits. And I learned that there were spaces between these atoms comparable to the distances between stars in their orbits, so that the old physics statement that 2 objects could not occupy the same area at the same time could no longer be termed true. I observed that other forms of life have sensory capacities which are much more sensitive in certain areas than those of humans. For example, dogs can hear and respond to the sounds of a whistle, the vibrations of which will not register in the human ear. Birds can sing in a range of sound beyond reach of our hearing. Animals have a sense of smell so keen they can detect the presence of an enemy incredible distances away. The bushman of Australia, still depending upon his animal instincts, have demonstrated his ability to be aware of approach of hunters or explorers several days before their arrival. Now doctors and psychiatrists have discovered that sounds we do not hear have profound vibratory effects upon our nervous systems. We are constantly being influenced by forces that are invisible to us and of which we are not consciously aware. The human eye can see only a limited band of color, yet science now knows that an almost infinite range of color combinations exist, which we are totally incapable of perceiving. It has taken the development of the telescope, microscope, and X-ray to reveal to us how little we know about the universe without us and within us. We are reminded continually that the air around us is filled with radio and television vibrations, unseen and unheard by us, until we bring them into the range of our sight and hearing by reconverting them back into sounds and images through mechanical means. We are now told that man's body itself is a transmitting and receiving instrument, and science recently suggested the possibility that each body cell contains not only an identity in specific function, but also is a recorder of everything that happens to it. It is therefore conceivable that an intelligence beyond our comprehension pervades all forms of life, from the infinitesimally small to the infinitely large. Scientists are asking, where does the material from which we are made come from? They have evidence that matter simply appears. It is created. At one moment, different atoms comprising the material do not exist, and at a later time, they do. Astronomers pretty well agree that creation is continually going on. They estimate that, in the observable universe alone, what might be termed new matter is being created at the rate of 100 million tons per second. This stupendous creativity implies the existence of an expanding universe in which new galaxies are constantly being formed. Today, it is an accepted fact that we exist in a universe which contains hundreds of billions of stars, each star a sun, in most cases far mightier than our own. Around these suns revolve countless planets, and many may contain intelligent life comparable to our own, or higher forms of evolution beyond our remotest comprehension. In the face of this knowledge, we must concede that we are still but in the kindergarten of a vast universe school of life expression and development. The mind of man only recently began to be aware of such cosmic events and to seek its place in the creative scheme of things. It is significant that from earliest recorded time, all concepts of God have come through belief in the supernatural. What primitive man was not able to explain in the workings of nature, he attributed to a mysterious power far greater than he. To appease this power and to seek its favor, he offered sacrifices of his prized possessions, even members of his own species. He also established worshipful rituals and ceremonies, and prostrated himself with many lamentations and confessions of his sinful shortcomings in the hope of escaping vengeance. Gradually, these crude superstitious attempts grew into religious cults, presided over by witch doctors who became the early priests. Superstition and mythology then combined to pass down to succeeding generations concepts born of fear and ignorance, the remnants of which are still found in the hell and damnation of some of our religions today. Intermingled, however, the dogmas and creeds in these various religions, so-called pagan and Christian, have been accounts of apparent supernatural happenings. Risen saviors, healings, raisings from the dead, the appearance of angels, the voice of God, the translation of saint-like individuals, dreams and visions purported to be of divine origin, physical miracles, and here and there evidences of true spiritual inspiration. Without this belief in the metaphysical, whether based originally on genuine phenomena or not, no religion ever would have been formed. It would seem, therefore, that in this modern day, when science is blasting superstitions and ignorance out of existence, all followers of all religions should be concerning themselves with proving the reality of the spiritual powers which they profess to believe. Such proof can be found only in and through the manifestation of what is now called extrasensory perceptive faculties in man. If these powers actually do exist, and the evidence that they do exist is overwhelming, then their study and development by science is the most important exploration that can be engaged in upon this planet. It far overshadows the value of all investigations we can make of outer space and other worlds. It provides the answer to man's problems on Earth, to his real nature and his relationship to his Creator. Every human being can live closer to the higher power. Great thinkers have left their mark upon civilization, contributing ideas and enlightenment, which have continued to serve mankind. Such minds have been illumined from within, as all minds could be illumined in accordance to their degrees of intelligence once attuned to this higher power. Followers of spiritual leaders such as Lao Tzu, Buddha, Muhammad, Confucius, Moses, Christ and others have been led to believe that they cannot individually attain the inspired enlightenment and nature of their teachers. This feeling of disparity between the leaders and his followers has been a most tragic deterrent to spiritual development and advancement. Most of these followers do not believe that they are endowed with the same God-given powers as their teachers. Could they realize that they actually do possess the same potentiality for spiritual development, millions upon millions of human beings would find released in and through them. A higher power that will raise immeasurably the quality and character of human life on this earth. Happily, there are now indications that some modern spiritual leaders are beginning to stress the importance of self-knowledge and the need for the individual to give thought to his own inner development. Atomic scientists have created a Frankenstein which they fear. Once out of hand, can destroy all life on this planet. So we see that man is equipped through the creativity of his own mind with weapons of total destructive power. He lacks as yet the mass awareness and development of the one power that can save him from himself. Those who understand the laws of mind know this to be true because, in the realm of mind, like always attracts like. Reduced to one emphatic statement, hate always attracts hate, and love always attracts love. Every spiritual leader throughout all time has declared the power of love and warned against the exercise of hate. As human creatures, we have refused to take these admonitions to heart. Were this not so, the world centuries ago would have become a harmonious place for all life upon it.